Alright everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be doing another Nomad survival beta video, and I think this is probably going to be the most important one of the character evolution branches out of all of them, and that's because it's going to be over the Ratfolk Archer. The Ratfolk Archer is definitely the class that, I don't know how to say it kindly, but it's just the worst class. I don't think there's ever really a reason to pick this character unless you're just trying to have fun. I do like the character. I like most bow characters in a lot of games, and I enjoy the concept of his ability, but I feel like it's just extremely lacking in comparison to everything else. So I'm excited to see how the changes are going to look to its evolutions. So let's see. The SP looks like it didn't change at all. That's awesome. It's 200. Oh, actually, it went down. Sorry, it's 200. These three are all the same. I know that I need to double check really quick because they were talking about how everything might be on the same. Give me 1 second. Just taking a look because they wanted to have everything the same. All max SP is the same for the newest character. Please do provide feedback on how you feel about SP costs. Are they too high or are they too low? Okay, cool. So they're just testing this out for these three being 200, which I'm interested in seeing basically. So for the weapon skill, trick shot, fire an arrow at your cursor location or with the joystick. I guess there's a lot of people playing with gamepads on the Steam Deck, I would assume. So that's pretty cool. I don't know if anyone out there uses a controller to play this game. Let me know. I'm interested to see. Bouncing off the edge of a screen and piercing enemies for a short time. If the arrow hits 7 enemies, it is permanently destroyed. Okay, so they got rid of the fact that there's no, time limit on this. So to me, this means you can have as many arrows as you can possibly have out there as long as they don't hit 7 enemies. So that's pretty interesting. Also, this is an update that I saw in my last video, but just want to kind of go over it again. And it's the fact that all stats affect weapon skills. Okay? And then every 2 amount grants 1 additional weapon skill attack. So the amount, you can increase it a crazy, amount, haha, puns. But this is still pretty cool because unless it's stated, it can be affected by these passives. And that's definitely probably one of the biggest questions just in general. This is the whole reason why this update is being made, is because so many people had so many questions on if X impacted Y, basically. And now, just assume that it does, unless it says it doesn't. I think that's a good way to figure those things out. So I'm excited to see what this is going to look like. I'm going to go Nomad for the extra rerolls and play on double experience. I already like the new effect. This looks sick. It actually looks like an arrow, so I'm excited about this. It looks pretty fantastic. For the most part, I'm gonna try and go things mostly passive so that we can see how impactful the weapon skill itself is. So I'll probably just, for lack of better knowledge, go duplication, so amount, and weapon skill size, because those two generally are the main modifiers for a lot of things. Weapon skill size probably isn't one of the modifiers for this one, but I'm just gonna pick it up anyways, just in case, and then as we go through the video, we'll be able to take a look at what exactly are going to be the modifiers for these evolution paths. So I'll go ahead and skip to level 30, and I'll see you guys there. Alright guys, we're about to hit level 30 here, and I gotta say, I'm a little bit underwhelmed right now, and it's just because I feel like doing everything is just significantly easier with the other abilities. The clear speed, it's just so much better. And we'll see how this looks with these upgrades. So I'm hoping that it looks better. So we got 2 choices: double strafe and enchanted arrows. The SP does not change, which I like because I feel like if you up the SP for this, it's not going to be that good. But double strafe, every 4th arrow, excluding from spectral sword, makes sense, launches an additional arrow with double duration at a slightly offset angle from where you're aiming. The arrow doesn't benefit from a mount. Okay, so every 4th arrow, you launch an additional arrow, so like you'd be wanting to get a lot of amount here and maybe a lot of projectile speed just for fun. And it looks like it has with double duration, so there is a duration on there. I didn't read any duration in the weapon skill, but I guess there is a duration still, which makes sense. But unless it means by duration the amount of times you can get hit, like that you can hit an enemy. So instead of 7, it's going to be 14. But that's something I'll need to read into a little bit more. And then enchanted arrows, every 4th arrow. A damage over time effect upon... Oh, okay, so every 4th arrow inflicts a damage over time effect upon the enemy equal to 4 times your base damage over 4 seconds. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm just concerned because you're almost always one-shotting enemies with most other weapon skills. I mean, even the other classes' weapon skills, you're one-shotting things. So this like damage over time stuff, I guess you could probably like theory craft a Ratfolk Archer, Poxbringer, Enchanted Arrows, Death Sting build, which is something I'd been looking at just because Poxbringer works really well with Death Stinger, or with Death Sting, because it's additional damage proc, so you have increased chances to proc Death Sting. But gosh, I just don't know how I feel about dot damage for a weapon skill, honestly. For this one, I'm going to go with the double strafe just for the beginning. So as you can see, we definitely got a lot more arrows coming out, which is nice. I feel like the clear is significantly better now. I was a little worried because it was kind of hard. I mean, you can see I'm a much lower level than I would normally be here. So I was a little worried, but this definitely makes much better clear. The damage is up, which is a good thing. The damage was not very good on the original skill. Didn't seem like it did all that much. So I'm excited to see. I wonder if there's like a bullet storm type weapon upgrade at level 60. Like always, I do have some like concerns about the level 60 thing, because I just don't think the upgrade is going to be that impactful by the time you hit level 60, honestly. So we'll go ahead and see what it looks like. I'll go ahead and skip to level 60 so we can see what the next 2 upgrade paths are for the double strafe weapon path. Alright guys, gonna go kill this portal, hit level 60. The character itself, I mean, it feels alright. It's in a better place than it was, I think, damage-wise, but I'm very underwhelmed with its weapon ability, basically. So I'm really hoping that the level 60 paths are going to be good. This is what I was looking for. Okay. So, Infinite Quiver. The SP goes down to 50. Duration of arrows is reduced by 70% and arrows no longer pierce. However, attack is much faster due to lower SP requirement. Arrows from Sexual Sword also no longer pierce. So, there's pros and cons here. You don't pierce anymore, and they don't last as long. But you're shooting significantly more arrows. I don't know if this is worth it, just because the fact that it doesn't pierce anymore, I mean, you're hitting 7 enemies at least, because you could hit 7 enemies before the arrow broke. And by reducing the cost from 200 to 50, you're shooting, I guess, 4 times the arrows. So, it's hard. But it's something that I thought we were going to go for. So I'm not too surprised to see something like this. It's going to probably look like what the SP regen looks like. And when you get SP regen boost, it's going to look even more insane. The second one is going to be Fancy Footwork. Looks like you have the same SP cost. The duration of arrows are further increased by your movement speed. Arrows can now pierce 30 enemies. So this is nice. Again, duration, I'm not 100% sure if that just means how many enemies it can hit or how long it exists. In my head, it would be how long it exists, but since it was based off of, the enemy dies after, 7 hits, or not the enemy dies, but the arrow dies after 7 hits. I'm not sure how this is going to look, so I'm going to go ahead with the Infinite Quiver here because I don't have any movement speed, and I can go movement speed on the next one. It looks exactly how I thought it would. I'm kind of actually pretty happy about that. I got a SP regen earlier, which you should have seen, and it was pretty good. This is going to be good for bossing, but I just don't know how I feel about it, honestly. The damage is good, but I have a lot of crit, I have a lot of projectile speed, and I have a couple points in crit damage. I'm waiting to see the other side of the path before I say anything, basically. But this one, yeah, you're just going to want to stack it with projectile speed, crit, and crit damage. So I don't see how you would make this much better, basically. Death Sting would be good here, honestly, since you're hitting things so often. I can definitely see a need for death sting, and then I've just been going skill size for fun. I think skill size is never a bad thing, especially with Pierce. You hit more enemies, basically. Obviously, you're limited by how many enemies you can hit with the arrow. But for the most part, I mean, I'm not like concerned about things hitting me between myself and Spectral Sword. You have pretty decent clear. I would be maybe concerned once you start putting map modifiers in, but for a normal playthrough, it's very, very strong. So I do think it's in a better place so far. I also don't have crazy SP regen right now, so you can definitely shoot a little bit faster. I'm gonna go ahead and do another one, and I will skip once we hit level 60 for that second path, which is going to be the fancy footwork. And I'll go ahead and pick up some extra movement speed so that we can see how well it does with max movement speed. Alright guys, about to hit level 60. For this one, I got my movement speed all the way up, so going as fast as we possibly can for this fancy footwork, which again, the duration of arrows are further increased by your movement speed. Arrows can now pierce 30 enemies, which I gotta say, 30 enemies? I can't think of a time where you would ever need that. So, for this playthrough, I went some amount. I went movement speed, I went projectile speed, crit chance, and crit damage. I don't have anything like maxed out other than movement speed and ascension, so it's kind of like a hodgepodge of all of those. And I can see like the thing that makes like me sad about this is just this to me is just a bad spectral bow. So why would I want to play a character who I could emulate with my like any other character? I could just pick this up. And I mean, honestly, spectral bow with the same specs is insane, especially if you hit level 10, maybe pick up a relic here or there. Yeah, I gotta say I'm underwhelmed. For this one, I mean, you do the same passives. Ascension is a fantastic weapon skill to pick up for the Ratfolk Archer. Basically, it covers all bases: projectile speed, crit chance, skill size, SP regen, HP regen, movement speed, all that good stuff. So I mean, it's a god tier skill for this character. And then yeah, again, crit chance, crit damage, stuff like that. I don't want to say this is like bad. I think it's definitely an improvement for the character. But in itself, I just feel like the character's still weak. And I'm struggling to see a use case where this character should ever be picked over anyone else. Other than just fun. I mean, the character itself is very fun. I do enjoy playing this character. But from a, like, lame meta, view of how would I do this the best, basically, I don't ever see myself picking Ratfolk Archer. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip over to level 30 so I can show you guys the two paths again, and we will dive down that secondary tree for the Ratfolk Archer. Alright guys, here we are about to hit level 30. For this one, since we're doing something that deals damage over time, I'm figuring that duration is going to be impactful here, but as a reminder, Enchanted Arrows is the other choice. Every fourth arrow inflicts a damage over time effect upon the enemy equal to 4 times your base damage over 4 seconds. So things like a mount are going to be really important here. Projectile speed I think is going to be really important here. You're obviously going to want to do your SP regen as high as possible because you're going to want to be casting your arrows as fast as possible. And then I'm going to do duration just to see, because I have a feeling that maybe one of the next evolution paths is going to be based off duration, because I mean, just poison and duration, those two things generally go hand in hand. So I'll go ahead and pick that up, and then we'll see what those next two things are once I hit level 60. So I'll save you guys some time and skip to it. Alright guys, here we are. Oh, nice SP regen boost. This looks really great. I'm about to hit level 60. Hopeful for these next choices. So let's take a look. We got Immaterial Quiver, which is going to increase the SP to 300. Every arrow inflicts damage over time effect upon the enemy equal to 4 times your base damage. Over 4 seconds, arrows can now pierce 20 enemies. So, I mean, just basically going to be increasing the damage over time effect and the amount of enemies you can hit with it. Again, I just feel like a damage over time ability is not useful for, like, I mean, I could play Poxbringer, and what does this do now? It's just increased damage. So you would have double damage and then 4 times, so it would be 8 times damage technically. So I mean that's cool, but I just I don't know. I don't see a point. It's kind of frustrating. I don't feel like this is something that like is really needed in the game right now. You could pick up Spectral Bow and go Poxbringer. The damage is going to be a little bit lower maybe, but I'm not even sure about that, because if you get base damage, I mean, it's just as powerful, so that's stressful. Then we got Magic Fields, which is summon a Magic Field. If an arrow passes through this field, it has its projectile speed doubled. Arrows only benefit from passing through these fields once. Only one field can be created at a time. Arrows can now pierce 30 enemies. So increase in pierce so you can hit more enemies. And it looks like you're going to be making these little rings, and if an arrow goes through it, it doubles it. And that's going to be good because you're going to be able to hit more enemies, but I don't really think that's super impactful. I'm going to go with Immaterial Quiver for this first one. It looks nice because it's green. I do like the effects for it. But yeah, it's so hard to say whether or not this is something that's really relevant or not, in my opinion. I mean, like, the boss damage is going to be great, but boss damage doesn't really matter. You could just go Fireball and, like, 3-shot the boss. And yeah, I don't get this, because you can just go Poxbringer and not worry about it, honestly. And I don't know. I'm failing to see the reasoning behind this path, basically. So I will save, you know, my discretions for the end of the video. It's good and it's strong, don't get me wrong, but it rhymed. But yeah, I'm just not sure if this is really the direction I was thinking that this character was gonna go. I'll go ahead and hop into the next one. We'll get it to level 60 real fast, and we can check out that magic ring path. So I'll go ahead and skip to that for you guys. Alright guys, we're about to hit level 60 here once we kill this boss. Went ahead and maxed out projectile speed for you guys, so we can see what this last one looks like when it gets the double speed, which I'm interested in. But I gotta say, I'm still kind of sad about this class, honestly. So, last one, we're gonna go Magic Fields. The SB is increased, just like an Immaterial Quiver. And this is going to create a magic field. If an arrow passes through this field, it has its projectile speed doubled. Arrows only benefit from passing through the field once, so you can't just go like back forth and, you know, duplicate multiple times. And then only one field can be created at a time, and arrows can now pierce 30 enemies. So there's the field. I shoot it through there. I mean, you could wait, what? I thought only one could be made at a time. This is interesting. So I gotta say, something might be a little bugged here, because I'm not too sure which one I'm actually supposed to be shooting it through. But regardless, I don't really see like a huge increase in projectile speed. Like, I don't think this is really that impactful, basically. And while they're going fast and they can pierce more enemies, it still has to deal with the duration, basically. So the fact that it's going faster, not really that impactful. It's cool, it's nice to look at, but I don't really think this adds all that much to it. I also think it might be bugged a little bit, so just a heads up, this is probably not what it's going to look like. I do think that I'm getting that acceleration when I go through it, but you're not going to have this many, because it said there's only going to be one field. So just for future reference, there's only going to be one of these fields on the map at a time. In general, I gotta say I am pretty disappointed with this class. It's just, even just from level 0 or level 1, you just don't really have any impact. The weapon skill isn't that good. I mean, I would say I could probably clear to level 30 faster just using Colorless Glyph or almost any other ability. You know, I was getting damaged in the early levels, not like enough to kill me or anything, right? But you just clear everything with every other class so far. So the fact that this is so weak, and it doesn't you know, start weak and gets significantly stronger at the end. I still think this class is pretty strong in comparison, or sorry, weak in comparison to all the other classes in the late game too. I don't really understand why there's a dot evolution path. I don't really think it makes sense. The first evolution path makes sense, you know, the infinite arrows are just like shooting more arrows. I get that. That's like something common I would expect from bows, you know, some type of like bullet and infinite quivers, what it was called. You know, that makes sense to me, but like this damage over time doesn't make sense because I just don't see where it fits in the game right now. Nothing has that much HP where you need that additional damage over time. And the fact that there's a whole level 60 evolution path that has to deal with additional damage over time, it just doesn't make sense to me. So many other weapon skills just one-shot everything, so I don't see a point. Obviously, when you're playing on the with the map modifiers and you have, say, additional enemy HP, right, and reduced damage, it's gonna be helpful, but I don't think it's gonna be that insane. I can see a use case where, you know, you use that damage over time to proc Death Sting a couple more times, but I think in general, it's just so weak. And there's no reason for it. I mean, if you go Poxbringer on any other class, you get damage over time. If you go Poxbringer in Spectral Bow, you practically have the Ratfolk Archer on any class. Especially if you get the Spectral Bow up to the max level, I think it's almost a little bit stronger, honestly. Especially with the relics, so it can bounce off the screen. It's just hard to see the light with this one. But like, I don't really want to just sit here and complain about it. We should talk about things that we could do to maybe make it better. The first thing I think of when I think of a bow class in any game is going to be a marksman, and it's going to be a hunter. Yes, these are both classes in WoW, or I guess I don't know what the little like the differences are. So you know, when you play DK, if you go Blood Knight or if you go Unholy, I know there's a term for that, but I don't remember. But anyways, I don't get why there's not an evolution path that deals with you know, headshots and crit damage. I mean, obviously there's no headshots in this game, but crit and crit damage is a thing. And it would make so much sense to me that the class that has the ranged ability has some type of evolution path that has to do with crit multiplier, crit damage, additional like one-shots with crits, stuff like that. I mean, I am so surprised that that wasn't one of the evolution paths. And then on top of that, just why isn't there anything to do like with that same class? You could do like extra damage to enemies that are farther away from the character, or the farther the arrow travels without hitting an enemy, the more damage it does when it first hits an enemy. I just feel like that would be significantly better. I mean, this is like one of the, in my opinion, only ranged characters. I know the Whisperer has range, the Cultist has a ranged attack. I mean, shoot, even the Crusader has range. The Divine, it's ranged, but like, this is the only class that has that nice projectile. You can count the Spirit from the Whisperer as a projectile, but this is your good old-fashioned shoot things, deal damage. And I don't think we really like implemented anything that you would see in a normal game that has to do with this, which for me is crit. Another evolution path you could have taken is some type of trap mechanism. Have the character drop traps behind it. Maybe give it an elemental affinity. Have it deal like a slow damage for ice, extra damage for fire. Maybe you can add like an entangle for arm or for earth, you know, stuff like that. And like maybe you can drop a wind trap that makes you move faster. Obviously, simple to talk about, hard to code. So I get it's not that simple. But like traps are such a, you know, like the epitome of a ranged character that has a bow. Traps are almost used all of the time in every class in almost every game when you can use a bow with a character. So the fact that that's not something that was thought about, I mean, I think both of those ideas that I just suggested are at least better than the damage over time. I can see a use case for the infinite quiver and the fancy footwork, you know, the additional arrows. I get that, but I feel like the damage over time in this little like additional projectile speed, I just don't think it has any use case, basically. So those would be my suggestions, guys. In general, the class is very fun to play, so if you're just playing the game for fun, I totally get it. It's still like really enjoyable, but just from like a mechanical use case look at it, I know that's so cringy and just like dumb to think about, but some people just want to do the most, you know, and they want to be able to play the best. They want to be able to like get into a game, look up how to play it as well as they possibly can, and just like excel at that. And that's really what I'm looking at for the majority of my videos. The class is fun. I'm definitely gonna play it, but I'm only gonna play it when I'm doing like something for fun, or maybe testing like very, very niche use cases, or maybe going a particular build. But like that would be such a niche use case. It's just not worth it, in my opinion, when you could do so many better things with the class. As always, guys, thanks for all the subs. Thanks for the support. I am really interested to hear your opinion on the Ratfolk Archer, because I think it's kind of controversial still as the worst class so far, at least. So let me know what you think, and I will see you on the next one.